I usually like to start my presentations with a little bit of fluff. For those of you who don't know what fluff is, it's that kind of irreverent, irrelevant part of a presentation that doesn't actually have anything to do with the presentation, but we come up here and we talk about it anyway. Personally, I like to talk about the fact that I'm from Sweden, and I usually make a joke about IKEA or ABBA, because when you're Swedish and you live in Australia, you get to hear literally every ABBA and IKEA joke that exists. People often think that we do fluff because we want to warm up the audience. We want to, establish a rapport or something like that. But that's not actually why we do it, or not why I do it anyway. Because it's not about you guys. It's all about me. I want to feel comfortable up here on stage because it's actually kind of terrifying. And it's important for me to feel comfortable because I know that any mistake that I make up here gets recorded in that camera right there, and it also gets recorded in all of your memories. If I misspeak, if I mispronounce something, which I will because I have a Swedish accent, then that's what happens. Because in the real world, the mistakes that we make are forever. We can't change them once we've made them. And it's really the way that the world works. You can almost say that the things that happen in real life are immutable. Once, yeah, people are starting to understand why I'm talking about IKEA and stuff. The things that happen to us are immutable. We can't change them after they've happened. And really, if you stop and think about it, this talk is an append-only list of immutable sentences. One happened after the other. Once I've made one of them, I'm not going to be able to change it. And just like life really is an append-only list of events. Somehow we, as humans, just kind of learn how to deal with that. Things go wrong, we change it. We fix it. We do other things that combat that thing. Except that's not how we build software, is it? Because with software, we get to be revisionists. With software, we get to play whatever deity of our choice. Because with software, we can delete. We can delete stuff in software, and it's awesome. We can change history. We can change what's happened just by erasing information. And this is how we're taught. This is how we're taught to develop software. We learn how to do CRUD, and CRUD wouldn't be CRUD if that last letter fell away, did it? Would we? And ActiveRecord really helps us with this. It gives us all of these really nice ways for us to delete data. It's great. Here are all the explicit ways that you can delete data, but it also gives us all these implicit, indirect ways to delete data, which is great. So we delete data really because we can. We've got, whoa, don't know what happened just then. Right, there we go. We've got this spinning metal disc, so it's got these tiny, tiny, teensy little magnets, and we can very easily flip them back and forth to determine whether it's a 1 or a 0. And because we can do that at basically no cost, it's very, very easy for us to delete data. This didn't happen back in the days when we recorded data on stone tablets, or when we were using papyruses or scrolls or any other kind of paper to record our data. And so we really have the technical revolution to thank for the fact that we're able to erase the information that we capture. But I would argue that erasing data is not a feature, it's a bug, and we shouldn't be thankful for it at all. I'd much rather you give me back my stone tablet. And I argue that data is really the most important thing that we do. It is at the core of what we as software developers do. We capture data from our users. It's what we sell. It's what we do. Everything we do revolves around the data. And this data survives even when technology doesn't. There are companies that stick around for 10, 50, 100 years. They will go through so many technology changes and technology evolutions But the data, the things that they sell, the people they've sold it to, all that sort of stuff, that doesn't change. It stays. But we delete it. We delete data. And sometimes we do it accidentally. I usually like to ask people when I'm interviewing them, what's the biggest screw-up you've ever made? Because I like to feel their pain. And the answer is actually usually about, I accidentally deleted something or dropped a production database or something like that. So yeah, we definitely delete data by accident. But we also do it on purpose. We delete it, but that can often come back to bite us. Because what if we need that data after it's gone? Often, deleting data has widespread or unanticipated consequences. Try to destroy a random user in your else app to kind of get a sense for what I mean, like see what breaks when you try to do that. But even more importantly, if we agree that data has value, why would we get rid of something that has value? Okay, sure, maybe not all data has value, but how do you know? How can you tell what data doesn't have value? And not just today, but in the future as well. How can you know for sure that the thing you're deleting is of no value and never will have any value of any kind? So if data can have value and we don't know for sure that it won't ever have value, that means that it's got possible value. It means that it's got potential value. And why would we get rid of something that has potential value? I'm not alone in thinking this way or feeling this way, by the way. It took me about 5 minutes to get this list of gems that help you soft delete things in ActiveRecord. There are ways to some of them, insert another database column that has a destroyed at timestamp or something like that. And I didn't write any of these fonts, and they have tons of downloads, all of them. And people have basically been saying, yeah, we don't actually want to delete any data. Here, let's have a workaround for it so that we don't delete any data. And workarounds can be OK. Workarounds can be perfectly fine. We live in a pragmatic world, and sometimes we have to make pragmatic decisions and do workarounds. And I would be OK with that if there wasn't something even more sinister lurking below. Because I think I can convince you, even if I haven't convinced you so far, give me 20 minutes with a drink in my hand, and I can definitely convince you that destroying data is bad. But I also argue that updating data is just as bad as deleting it. Because when we update, we overwrite what was previously there. And that makes me wonder, why should we suddenly not care about what was there before? If a user goes and updates their email address, does that mean that the old email address is of no value to us anymore? We can throw it away easily? Sure, we might not send emails to them anymore, but if we want to try to debug why they didn't get an order confirmation, or if we wanted to try to figure out bounce rates for particular email providers, that having that email address around and the history of the emails that we've sent to them at that address would actually be kind of useful. But we're replacing it. When we update something using ActiveRecord, we're replacing the data that was there before. We're putting something instead, and as a result, every update is a delete. Every single time we update anything in any of our applications, we are deleting and destroying data. And it's worse. This is why I'm saying it's more sinister, because it's less explicit. We don't notice that we're doing it. Sure, we can work around this as well. We can do changelog, audit logs, database triggers, all of these things that kind of try to capture the changes that are happening, but and yeah, find further workarounds to keep track of them. But it's getting to the point where these workarounds are starting to get difficult. It makes me feel uncomfortable. The kind of discomfort that no amount of fluff at the beginning of a talk can ever hope to fix. Because why should I have to go out of my way not to lose the thing that I feel is most important to me? And the more I thought about it, I decided that delete and update are the enemies. I just don't want to do it anymore. I just don't want to delete data. I don't want to update it anymore. Stop. But if I don't have delete and update, if I revoke those privileges to my database, what do I have left? What do I have left? What can I do? Well, I have insert and I have select. But if I'm only ever inserting data and reading it back, what does that mean? If I'm only ever inserting, does that mean that I'm kind of making it append only? If I'm never updating anything, does that mean I'm making it immutable? And does that mean that I'm actually building software the same way that the world works? Can I record the things that happen as they happen and never change them? About 18 months ago, I came across this term, event sourcing. I started reading about it. I heard about it from a colleague. And the more and more I thought about it, the more I felt something that I hadn't felt since I discovered Rails back in 2006. This is a new way to build software, and it will change our industry. That's what I felt, honest to God. Let me try to explain how it works, because it's actually pretty easy. The way that ActiveRecord works is it takes the current state of an object, and then it stores that in a database. That's pretty much it. When the state of that object changes, we change the way that we represent that object we change the representation in the database. So let's take an example. John, there's lots of Johns here. One of you got married and wants to take the last name of your partner. Cool. The way that ActiveRecord works is we have a user record, a user object, and we have a database record that represents that object like for like. When we update the user, we basically get an updated database record. With event sourcing, we don't do that at all. With event sourcing, we instead store the events that have happened to that object over the lifetime of whatever that thing is. And then we source, hence event sourcing, we source the current state by just replaying all of those events in sequence. So doing the same thing with event sourcing, you'd have an object that you have created based on the sign-up events and the data that the user gave us at the time of sign-up. And when they change their last name, we create another event. And the other event has the change that they're making and the new data. So when we then try to reconstitute this object, we just load both events, replay them, and that's how we figure out the current state. And so the data becomes an append-only list of immutable events. And that's what event sourcing is all about. And if a mistake is made, we don't go back and change the event, even if it's bad, even if it's got the wrong thing. We just write another event that fixes it, just like we do in real life. But I was wrong now. It turns out that this fancy new paradigm that I thought would change the world, it's not true, because it's not actually new at all. Because the thing is, ActiveRecord has no respect for history. It definitely doesn't have any respect for the history of the data that it's tasked to store, sure, but it also doesn't have any respect for all of the methodologies that came before it. And to understand how to respect history, we must look towards history itself. Because at the very core of every business, and has been for a very long time, there is one system, one single system. You all know what a system is. You all work with system, and there's one system wherever you work that is more important than anyone else. It's not the website, even though that's what you guys probably, you people probably work with. It is this one. You literally cannot have a business without an accounting system. You can't. You cannot have a business without an accounting system. You have to keep track of money coming in, money going out. You have to do payroll and taxes and all that sort of stuff. And here's the kicker. Your accounting system is event-sourced. A bank account's current state, right, it's its balance. I've got $405 in mine. But the balance of a bank account, the balance of any account in any accounting system is ephemeral. The balance is actually sourced from adding up all the debits and all the credits that have ever happened to that account over the history of the account. So if I lost that balance, if whatever database table that I store account balances were in suddenly got dropped by accident, I could get that back simply by replaying all of the transactions. And these transactions are what matters. And a bank account is an append-only list of immutable transactions. You can't update or delete a bank account transaction. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Imagine the chaos. How would you feel if you logged into your internet banking one morning and saw that your bank had changed the transaction from 3 years ago, or changed the value, or removed it, or something like that? You'd be pretty pissed off. And how would you feel if you couldn't actually calculate your own bank account balance? How would you feel if you had to rely on the developers of the people that work in the bank to make sure that they don't write any bugs into their code and accidentally store the account balance wrong? How would you feel about that? And you couldn't verify that. So we event source it. And honestly, this is how it's worked for over 500 years, long before there were computers. Because event sourcing is robust, it's scalable, it's auditable, it's trustworthy, and it's proven. And if this is how we deal with our most important data, the money, why wouldn't we do the same to all of our other data? The data of our users, the data that they give us. Why are we so caught up with the idea of mapping object states into database tables? Why? Yes, we need state, absolutely. I agree. But we don't need to persist the current state. And this, I think, lots of people rag about ActiveRecord, but this is the fundamental thing that it gets wrong. And all other ORMs for that matter. Because ActiveRecord is encouraging us to do the wrong thing with our data. It's teaching us to delete, and it's teaching us to update our data. And that is why it must die. Sorry. It's not me, it's you. You have to die. Because without it, we can have nice things. Without it, we can have all the same objects in the code and just persist them a little bit differently. And as a result of that, we can record everything that happens so that we never purposely or accidentally delete anything ever again. We've done this at Envato, which is where I work. We've spent the last year building a system like this. And I'll be honest, it's been pretty hard. It's been a bit of a mind shift for the developers. You have to think about the way that you treat your data in such different ways. And while we've solved a lot of these problems, and we no longer lose our data, we've replaced those problems with new problems. Because that's how software development works, right? You fix one problem and another one comes up. There aren't any silver bullets in software development, and there's no one true solution for any problem. But if you care about historical data, and most of the applications that we work with do care about history of data over a period of time, I think you should consider event sourcing. And the way that you do that is by starting to think about what would your app look like if you just revoked the delete and the update privileges of whatever user it is that's connecting to the database table. What if you could no longer execute any delete or update queries via ActiveRecord or in any other way? How could you build the app that you have right now only with insert and select queries? And there's a whole other world of event sourcing out there. And I wish I could tell you all more about it, but I'm basically out of time. So I'd encourage you to have a look at it. And come talk to me and others. There's a few Envato people who have been part of building the systems, and we'd love to talk to you about it. Thank you.